The bus squealed to a stop in front of the iron gates of the Marston estate, the kind of gates that whispered of old money and secrets guarded for generations. Rachel Carter clutched her small purse to her chest as if it could protect her from the storm inside her. She stepped down, carefully adjusting the skirt of the stiff uniform she still wasn't used to wearing. Just yesterday, she had been in jeans and a t-shirt wiping down counters in a downtown Boston cafe. Now, at 26, she was walking toward a world that didn't belong to her. A world of chandeliers, polished marble, and names that carried weight in the city like thunder. Her reflection flashed in the iron as the gate slowly opened after she introduced herself over the intercom. Rachel Carter, reporting for my first day, she had said, her voice steady, though her heart raced. A woman's reply came swiftly, crisp, and professional. Welcome to the Marston estate. The gate's heavy groan sent a shiver down Rachel's spine. The estate stretched before her like something out of a magazine, 3 towering floors of colonial architecture, wide stone steps, immaculate hedges and fountains that sparkled in the early April light. Rachel walked the path lined with rose bushes, each step feeling heavier, like she was walking into someone else's life. But she reminded herself why she was here for Annie. Her little girl deserved more than bare survival. This job, with its pay, triple what Rachel had ever made, was the chance she needed. At the front door stood a woman in her 50s, her hair pinned back neatly, her apron marking her authority. You must be Rachel. I'm Dorothy, the head housekeeper. Mrs. Margaret Marston will see you now. Her tone was polite, professional, but her eyes measured Rachel carefully. Inside, the estate swallowed her whole. The foyer gleamed with marble so polished she could see her reflection, and above hung a chandelier so massive it seemed to hold all the stars Rachel's daughter loved to point at through their apartment window. Her flat shoes clicked against the floor as Dorothy led her past rooms that looked like they belonged in a museum, velvet sofas, oil paintings, polished wood antique mirrors. Rachel felt her throat dry. She didn't belong here. They stopped at a pair of double doors carved with intricate detail. Dorothy leaned close, addressed her as Mrs. Marston, never by her first name. A knock, a soft command from within, and the doors opened. The main parlor was breathtaking, floor-to-ceiling windows pouring in sunlight over velvet couches and a marble fireplace. In the center, seated with an elegance that seemed effortless, was Margaret Marston. Her hair, ash blonde, streaked with silver, was styled into a perfect chignon. A navy suit clung to her sharp frame, pearls at her neck glinting softly. She looked up with eyes as sharp as glass. "So you're Rachel," she said. Her tone was calm, but it carried weight, the kind that made Rachel's pulse hammer faster. "Dorothy tells me you've worked in service before." "Yes, ma'am." "In restaurants and cafes for 5 years," Rachel answered, clutching her hands together so Margaret wouldn't see them tremble. "I know attention to detail matters, and I learn quickly." Margaret stood, her posture flawless. "This house has stood for generations. Its reputation is not only in its wealth, but in the discipline and loyalty of those within. I expect nothing less from you." Rachel nodded, her words practiced but sincere. "I'll do my very best, Mrs. Marston." Something flickered in Margaret's eyes, approval perhaps, or a test passed for now. "Dorothy will explain your duties. But first, I want you to understand what this house represents." She gestured for Rachel to follow her. They crossed the room to a wall lined with golden-framed portraits. One by one, Margaret pointed to them, patriarchs and matriarchs of the Marston family, their stern gazes painted into permanence. Rachel nodded respectfully, though unease curled in her stomach. "This was my husband, Edward Marston," Margaret said softly, stopping before the portrait of a man with a severe jaw and a mustache sharp as his stare. "He built our empire until his passing 10 years ago, and here," she moved her hand, "our children." Rachel's eyes landed on the next portrait, a young couple on their wedding day smiling faintly, then a family portrait. Then her breath caught. There, painted with such skill that every detail was undeniable. The same unruly brown hair, the defined jaw, the piercing green eyes that had once melted into hers. The man she had known as Michael. Her chest constricted, her legs felt unsteady. She couldn't breathe. "Are you all right?" Margaret's voice broke the spell. Rachel blinked, trying to ground herself, but the pounding of her heart was deafening. She pointed, hand shaking, unable to stop herself. "Mrs. Marston, why is the father of my child in your family portrait?" The room froze. The air itself seemed to stop moving. For a beat too long, silence was the only answer. Margaret's face tightened, confusion flashing into something sharper. What did you just say? Her voice, once serene, now carried steel. Rachel realized her mistake, but the words were already out. She should have stayed silent, swallowed her shock. But it was too late. That man, Rachel whispered, her throat raw. I knew him as Michael. We were together 5 years ago, and my daughter, her voice cracked, but she pressed on my daughter. Annie has his eyes. Margaret's gaze snapped back to the portrait. Her jaw clenched. This is my son, Joseph Marston. He has been abroad for years managing our business expansion. He could not possibly be the man you speak of. But Rachel knew. She knew like she knew her own child's laughter. The green eyes in that painting were the same ones Annie looked at her with every day. Her voice steadied almost in defiance. I'm not mistaken. I'd recognize him anywhere. Margaret's silence was suffocating. Her expression remained controlled, but a flicker of doubt passed across her face. Rachel pressed forward, her own courage surprising her. 5 years ago, he called himself Michael. He never told me his real name. We were together 3 months. Then he disappeared. Weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. That is absurd, Margaret snapped, her mask cracking. Joseph would never live under a false name. He is a Marston. Then why did he vanish? Rachel countered, her voice trembling but firm. Why did he leave me without a word? Margaret's lips pressed into a hard line. For the first time since Rachel stepped inside the estate, the iron-clad matriarch faltered. Rachel's pulse roared in her ears. The truth she had never expected to uncover stood painted on the wall before her. And in that moment, the fragile world she had built for Annie began to tremble, and that's where part 1 closes. Now, to keep your audience hooked while staying in the story's emotional flow, here are the questions. Do you think Margaret Marston truly knows more than she admits, yes or no? Rachel felt her whole body trembling, but she refused to back down. Margaret Marston stood in silence for a long time, her sharp eyes flickering between the portrait and the young woman before her. Then, with the elegance of someone used to command, she turned and walked toward a sofa. Sit, she ordered, though her tone was less harsh than moments earlier. Rachel obeyed, her heart pounding, her palms damp. Tell me everything, Margaret demanded. How did you meet this Michael you claim is my son? Rachel hesitated, then took a deep breath. It was 5 years ago. I was working at a cafe in downtown Boston, just off the main square. He came in every morning, always ordered black coffee and an almond croissant. One day he asked me my name. The next week he asked me out. Her voice softened with the memory. He said he worked in finance, that he traveled often. He never spoke of his family. But for 3 months, it felt like something real. Then one day he was gone. No calls. No goodbyes, just gone. Margaret's jaw tightened, but she was listening closely now. Her hand, decorated with a heavy gold ring, tapped against the armrest. And you never tried to find him? To contact him? How could I? Rachel replied, her voice breaking with the memory of those desperate weeks. I didn't know his last name, where he lived, who he really was. I only knew him as Michael. By the time I discovered I was pregnant, he was already a ghost. Margaret rose suddenly, crossing the room to a tall desk near the window. She opened a drawer and pulled out a leather-bound photo album. If you're telling the truth, then you'll recognize him here. Not from a portrait, but from life. She placed the album on the coffee table and slid it toward Rachel. Her hands shook as she opened it. There he was, Joseph Marston, in candid photographs, smiling on a beach, tossing his head back in laughter, nervous at a graduation with his hand in his hair. Rachel gasped. These were the same expressions she remembered, the same gestures Annie had inherited. She touched the page as if it might vanish. It's him. It's the man I loved. And he's Annie's father. Margaret's face was unreadable, but her eyes betrayed a storm inside. My son is not careless. He would not abandon a woman with his child. Rachel's voice steadied. He did. Or maybe he didn't have a choice. I don't know. All I know is Annie is his daughter. You can see it in her eyes, her smile. Even the way she furrows her brow when she concentrates. It's him, Mrs. Marston. The room grew silent again, heavy with things unsaid. Finally, Margaret's voice softened just enough for Rachel to notice. How old is the child? 4 years and 2 months, Rachel replied. Margaret closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with resolve. You will not speak of this to anyone, not to Dorothy, not to the staff, not to my son yet. Do you understand? Rachel's stomach nodded. Yes, Mrs. Marston. But Margaret continued, I will need to see the child tomorrow morning. Bring her to the guest house at the end of the garden. No one else needs to know for now. Rachel froze. For 4 years, she had protected Annie fiercely from a world that could wound her. But she had no choice. I'll bring her, she whispered. The next day, after finishing her shift, Rachel led Annie by the hand through the manicured garden. The little girl in her favorite flowered dress clutched her stuffed rabbit. Margaret was waiting on the porch of the guest house, dressed impeccably in cream. Her sharp eyes softened the moment they landed on Annie. So this is your daughter, Margaret murmured as if speaking to herself. Annie hid behind Rachel's leg, shy but curious. Margaret knelt, surprisingly graceful, and offered a plate of cookies she had placed on the table inside. These were Joseph's favorites when he was a boy. Annie's dimples showed as she bit into one, the same dimples that had once made Rachel fall in love with Michael. Margaret pressed a hand to her chest. It was undeniable. May I see her drawings? Margaret asked gently. Annie opened her backpack and shyly revealed a sketchbook filled with colorful drawings. One page caught Margaret's eye, a simple but remarkably balanced sketch of a house. You drew this? She asked. Annie nodded proudly. It's my dream house. One day I'll build it. Margaret's lips trembled. Joseph wanted to be an architect before the family pulled him into the business. The silence was broken only by the ticking of the clock on the mantel. Then Margaret's phone buzzed. She turned away to answer, her voice low, but Rachel caught enough. Yes, he's on his way. Tomorrow morning. Rachel's breath caught. Tomorrow. Joseph Michael was returning. Too soon. She wasn't ready. Her chest tightened as Margaret turned back, her expression composed but eyes betraying the gravity of her words. My son will be here at 8. Be ready. That night, Rachel barely slept. She stared at Annie as she slept peacefully beside her, the little girl's hair falling across her forehead. She remembered the nights she had worked double shifts, the tears she had shed alone, the strength it had taken to raise her daughter without answers. And now, the man who had left her, whether by choice or not, would be standing before her. At dawn, Rachel put on a simple but elegant dress, not the uniform. She told herself she would not face Joseph as a servant, but as Rachel Carter, the mother of his child. By the time she reached the estate, a black Audi was already parked near the fountain. Her steps felt heavier than ever as Dorothy led her through the hall, unaware of the storm brewing. When the parlor doors opened, Rachel froze. There he was, Joseph Marston. Michael. 5 years vanished in an instant. His eyes, those same green eyes, locked with hers, shock spreading across his face. Rachel's breath left her body. It felt like seeing a ghost. Michael, she whispered the name falling from her lips before she could stop it. Joseph staggered as if struck, his hand raked through his hair, that nervous habit she remembered all too well. Rachel, his voice cracked. What? What are you doing here? Margaret's voice cut through the charged silence. Your past has returned, Joseph, and it has questions. The air was thick with the weight of what was about to unravel. Do you think Joseph truly abandoned Rachel, or was he forced to disappear, yes or no? For a long moment, Joseph stood frozen, his eyes locked on Rachel as if the years had dissolved and they were back in that small cafe in Boston. But the silence was unbearable. Rachel forced herself to speak, her voice trembling but steady enough to cut through the tension. 5 years, Joseph. 5 years without a word. You disappeared like a shadow. Do you have any idea what that did to me? Joseph swallowed hard, his hand tightening on the back of a chair as if he needed it to stay upright. Rachel, I swear to you, I never wanted to leave. Those months with you were the most real thing I've ever had. But my family, my father, he gave me no choice. He threatened to destroy your life if I didn't walk away. Rachel's chest ached, torn between anger and disbelief. You expect me to believe you left me to protect me? Yes, Joseph said firmly, his green eyes glistening. It killed me to walk away. I wanted to tell you I wanted to fight, but my father, he had power over everything. I thought by leaving I was saving you, but not a day has passed that I haven't regretted it. Rachel's lips trembled. Her anger began to crack under the weight of his words. You weren't just leaving me, Joseph. You left your child. Annie. The name seemed to hit him like a physical blow. He staggered back a step, his face pale, his chest rising and falling rapidly. A child. His voice was no more than a whisper. Our child. Yes. Rachel said, tears brimming in her eyes. She's 4 years old. She has your eyes, your smile, even the way you run your hand through your hair when you're nervous. She is yours, and you weren't there. Joseph pressed his hand to his mouth, his whole body trembling. My God, he breathed. I have a daughter. His eyes shot to his mother, who sat rigid in her chair. You knew? Margaret shook her head. I suspected only yesterday when she recognized your portrait. Rachel told me everything, but I had no proof until now. Joseph turned back to Rachel, his voice breaking. Where is she? Please, Rachel, I need to see her. I need to meet my daughter. Rachel hesitated. Her instincts screamed to protect Annie. She had built a safe world for her little girl, a world free from the lies and secrets of the Marston family. But as she looked into Joseph's eyes, she saw not the